Get ready to double down on dental care. Ryca International is here to make your brushing routine twice as fast, but with all the clean.
Next Pitch TV showcases the most innovative equity crowdfunding campaigns for the verdict of the crowd.
Joining us today is the brilliant mind behind it all, Ryan Taylor Schwartz, the founder who's determined to help us all smile a little brighter faster.
So, welcome to Next Pitch TV, where we showcase the most innovative campaigns for the verdict of the crowd. And I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Ryan Schwartz. And so, Ryan, please tell our audience what you have to offer in terms of your startup, if I may.
Of course. And Ralph, I really appreciate you reaching out to me. As every entrepreneur will tell you, it really does take a village, and we always appreciate the opportunity to kind of tell our story. So we are a revolutionary oral care startup, and we have a toothbrush that provides a full whole mouth clean in just 30 seconds. And what's important to kind of mention right now is that we've been working on this a long time. Some people will notice that our first round was in 2020. And since then, there certainly have been competitors that have offered a similar solution. That is to say that competitors have come to market claiming to be a 30-second solution. And the reason there's so much energy in this space is because there's not a consumer in the world that wouldn't prefer an effortless, simple clean in just 30 seconds. Obviously, if we had a real solution, all of us would prefer to brush in 30 seconds versus 2 minutes. With the utmost respect to our competitors who are trying to offer solutions, the reality is those solutions currently are not effective. They lack efficacy, and I don't mean to disparage people who are trying to put new products in the market. I appreciate that. But every peer-reviewed study says, hey guys, it's the right idea. Don't abandon your typical toothbrushes yet, because those solutions are just not quite effective. And what makes Ryca very different is that we have taken the time to make sure we can offer a reliable solution, so that when people brush with Encompass, they're getting a true, reliable, effortless clean in just 30 seconds. And the reason, Ralph, that's so important is because obviously I could talk about the market, and it's a $60 billion oral care market and a $17 billion toothbrush segment, and 3.5 billion of just the US electric toothbrush market alone. And it's a massive market and growing, but the reality is today's toothbrushes in that huge market are letting you down. They're letting consumers down because only 1 in 10 of us are actually brushing correctly with today's products, because they require 2 minutes. And I don't know about you, Ralph, but I certainly have never brushed for 2 minutes. I never hear kind of the timer go off. And they're very heavily technique dependent. So unless you're giving the proper time and technique, you're actually not getting the oral care that you need and deserve. And of course, that poor oral care leads to overall poor health. And so it's really important to us to deliver on our promise. And that's part of the reason we've taken so long to get to market. But now we stand today with a tested and proven solution. So we're excited. We think this is every entrepreneur thinks that they have a game changer, but I truly think this is going to revolutionize the market.
I totally agree. Do I see this correctly? I think you also have a patent. Did I see that correctly?
We have multiple patents, of course. Yes, we have our first patent was issued, and that was a 21 claim patent, really kind of capturing. And Ralph, what's really interesting, the other reason that we're different from our competitors is we're driving our larger brush head with a different technology than most of the competitors are using. Most of the competitors are relying on some type of vibration as their drive system. And not to get too wonky, but the reality is that weight and mass is the enemy of vibration. If the larger the brush head gets, that vibration is going to become inadequate. So we are the only pneumatic air-driven system, and that's the center of our first patent, which is to say, and hopefully I can share with you some illustrations and animations of how the brush actually works. But we have a pump inside of our handle that's inflating and deflating the bladder and the brush head at either 42 or 35 hertz. We did user studies to find out that that's the best combination of comfort and efficacy. And so, yes, our first patent covers our J-shaped design and the completely revolutionary pneumatic system. And then we just got granted in the last couple months, weeks and months, patent number 2 and patent number 3, which is around the construction of our unique bladder, the construction of the J-shaped frame, and just building upon our first patent.
Wow. No, I mean, that's actually very impressive. And from an investor point of view, very important, since it clearly certifies your distinction or your separateness, you might say. Now, tell us a little bit, how did this come about in the first place? Because I noticed that you, I believe, used to be in the entertainment area. Is that, if I see that correctly?
Yes, Ralph, I really appreciate you taking a good look at us. So yes, I'm a Los Angeles kid, born and raised, filmmaker, went to USC Film School in LA. And the reason this came about is because my father, Dr. Kerry Schwartz, happens to be a renowned dentist to the stars in Beverly Hills. And when I was getting my teeth whitened one day, his office made me a bleaching tray. And purely out of, I hate to admit this, but laziness, and this is before, Ralph, any of these competitor brushes existed, I had the thought that if this tray was bristled, maybe I could brush my teeth in a fraction of the time. And it was really born out of lazy need. At the time, Ralph, I didn't know how pervasive poor oral care was. I didn't know the stats that we weren't brushing properly. I just was a lazy guy that wanted a faster solution. I didn't realize at the time what a life changer this would be for our limited dexterity communities. People who don't have the ability to brush for the full 2 minutes and don't have the ability to reach hard to reach areas. So of course, at the time, my dad's retired now, but he's still a chair of our dental advisory board. But of course, he was my first call. And I said, hey, Dad, this is crazy, but if I could do something like this, would there be a need in the market? And my dad, of course, was the first to teach me about compliance, about the fact that we're not brushing properly. And so we're crazy, we're risk takers, we were gamblers our whole life, and we didn't know the first thing about consumer products and product design at the time. We paid an attorney to do a patent search. There was almost nothing out there. Now there are thousands of patents, as so many people are trying to get into this space. And I will tell you, Ralph, that I took my filmmaking experience and translated that into running a company. And I don't mean to sound too kind of falutin, but the only way to make a great film is to surround yourself with great people. And the only way to make a great product is to do the same thing. So it was very important for us to build a real team. And as you might see in our campaign, I was lucky enough through networking to meet the previous director of engineering for Sonicare. And I said, hey, I've got a new way to approach this. And he came on. He's not just he's a partner. He's basically a founding partner with us. His name's Jerry Brewer. And so I had the greatest toothbrush engineer that you could possibly have. And we built a team around that. Our salespeople had previous Sonicare experience. So that's a long answer to how it came about.
No, I totally love it. I mean, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started 12 companies. And I just, it's so interesting to see that what you describe are what I would call the core ingredients of most startups, or at least path-breaking startups. In other words, how you got there, what you decided to do, how you decided to do it, and so forth. And I totally commend you on that. That is really great to hear. Now, as you know, we are particularly into equity crowdfunding. And I noticed that you were actually one of the relatively early, let's put it this way, equity crowdfunding started in 2016. And if I understand it correctly, you had your first campaign in 2019, is that, if that's correct?
In 2019 or 2020, we actually first did Indiegogo. So we very early on, through my dad and I were our first investors. Our skin is in the game, and then through friends and family, we were able to raise about $350,000 at the time, which was enough for Jerry, who was working for equity, because we were just all in, for us to really figure out the best way to move this larger brush head. And even back then is when we actually came up with the pneumatic system, patented it, and I was able to design it. We were able to do some rough prototypes. And with that, we went to Indiegogo because we wanted to do the smart thing. We thought we had a winner, but we wanted to see if there was a market for it, right? And so by the time we went to Indiegogo, I will say that a couple brushes in this 30-second half-mouth brushing had beat us to Indiegogo, and they raised a ton of money, and they failed to deliver. And they shut their doors after taking millions of dollars from consumers. And so we actually entered the marketplace with our audience being very skeptical. fool me once, fool me twice. And we presented our team, we presented the brush, and we sold $450,000 worth of brushes in the first 2 minutes. I'm sorry, 2 minutes, 2 months. 2 minutes would have been amazing.
Hey, that would be
in the first 2 months. And so with that, we really appreciated the value of the crowd. It wasn't just that we were able to bring in some capital for the company, but we were hearing directly from our consumers what they liked, what they didn't like. They challenged me. You'll see on Start Engine, I'm, of course, a bit of the voice of our brand because I want to hear from consumers and I want to be, I want them to know that I'm listening and that I'm responding. And so on Indiegogo and Start Engine, I individually replied to every single comment, every single one. And so then we turned to equity crowdfunding with Start Engine. And yeah, we were amazed. We were able to oversubscribe the round with $200,000 worth committed on our wait list that we weren't even able to take. So we actually raised almost 1.3, but they just had to stay on the wait list. So yeah, it was pretty amazing that even in a skeptical market, people saw. I think the story that we're trying to do something real and provide a real solution is what resonated with consumers. And so now we have 6,000 backers, 4,000 on Indiegogo and over almost 3,000 on Start Engine.
Right. I mean, it's very noticeable, or notable, I should say, that obviously in the case of Indiegogo, which is rewards crowdfunding, you're talking about people not investing in the company per se, but if you will, in the product, i.e., oh, I like your idea, let me go ahead and buy it and hope that in X amount of time, it actually comes to pass and I'll get it. But the important part is really that it's the beginning and the end of the relationship per se. Equity crowdfunding, of course, is a very different animal, and which is kind of one of the reasons why I love it. From the startup perspective, you're not even getting the product in most cases. Now, can be the case if there are rewards, etc. But generally speaking, you're investing in the vision. You're investing in the dream, in a very fascinating development. But the nice thing from the startup point of view is that when people make this kind of an investment, they not only become potential customers, but in some cases, evangelists. And how much are you paying them? Oh, gee, nothing. In fact, ultimately, arguably paying you to spread the message. I mean, that is a very, very compelling solution, as it were, from my perspective anyway. And that's why I like it. So it's fun. I did not realize that you'd initially already tried Indiegogo. So, so you've switched from one to the other. And I guess it's safe to say that you're pretty happy with the results of the first campaign, hence now the second. So, no, this is really very exciting to see. Now, I noticed that it is international in the name. Ryca International means that I guess you have some pretty big plans there.
We do. Big plans is a great way to put it. And I want to try to maintain humility when I say this. We plan to be the new gold standard in oral care. Let me distinguish that. We've all started to hear about these 30-second solutions, right? But you don't have one on your counter. I have mine. It's not the way yet. It's an out there alternative because nobody has cracked the code, right? We have. Now, I have the privilege of knowing that because I see our user test and our bench test and our simulation test and our plaque studies, but the world hasn't seen it yet. But this is just a better way to brush, because what we know is that consumers are not going to change. We're not going to start magically brushing for 2 minutes and applying the proper technique. We are going to be exactly who we are. And as a matter of fact, we're only busier now than we ever were, right? So it's amazing to me, Ralph, that if you think about it, toothbrush design hasn't fundamentally changed in 30 years since Sonicare came on the scene in the late 90s and introduced a power toothbrush. And when we all tried it, I don't know if you remember this, but it was tickly. I don't know if you remember, but like people were like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to do this because it's vibrating and it's a little tickly, but then the efficacy was so much better. So we adopted, right? And that's what Ryca is going to be. That's what our flagship Encompass product is going to be. Yes, the brush head is a little larger than you're used to seeing. I promise you it's deceptively comfortable. The moment you put it in, you go, oh my gosh. And it kind of what we decided to do was a one size fits all. So there's people who like bite into this wax paper and send us your size and we'll send you a small or a medium or a large. No, we spend a ton of design and engineering time to make sure that our brush adapts to your mouth, adapts to a 15-year-old woman of every race, every ethnicity. And so I love how you said it seems like you have big plans. This is a David versus Goliath story. We intend to be the gold standard in oral care, not an alternative, not some, funky thing on the perimeter. This is the way that I believe the world is going to brush their teeth. I should tell you, it's a tricky part of our story because it's confidential, but I'm not alone in that. One of the biggest industry leaders in the space has reached out to us because they are sure that we have the right way to do it. And as a matter of fact, we have developed a portion of our brush with this person. Can't say who it is, but I guarantee you have their toothbrushes in your bathroom right now. So that's another differentiator. This is a real deal play. This isn't to be a cool, independent brand. This is going to be, and Ralph, I should say to that, in the same, we have so many people from our Sonicare team. The same way that they knew that dental endorsement was key in the 90s when they wanted to introduce a new way of brushing, we share the same philosophy. Our sales team is already thinking about how to kind of motivate dental professionals, dentists, hygienists to not only endorse our brush, but then become advocates of the brush. We're going to run some of our clinicals through dental offices. Anyway, I know I talk a lot. The one more thing I want to say there is we also can't wait to think about mass distribution to care centers, to elder living facilities, to the military, to hospitals. If you come in and you've injured yourself and you can't quite brush for 2 minutes, there's so many medical device applications to this as well. But I talk so much. I'm sorry, Ralph.
No, not at all. Actually, I totally agree with you. In fact, it is fascinating that as much as an enthusiast as I am about equity crowdfunding, the reality is that from the perspective of most investors, while we all would love to have a 10x or 30x or whatever return, typically that is not the case. In fact, quite a few people, in effect, lose their investment altogether. That's obviously not what they want. On the other hand, the good news, if you will, is that most investments are fairly modest, not people's life savings. That's almost by design. No, this makes a huge difference. So in other words, people are investing as much to get the emotional reward, I suppose, as for the financial one. However, the reason why I'm saying this is because, well, let me see, what you're doing here is not just revolutionary in terms of concept, but having taken it to where it is in terms of your patents and so forth, yes, there's still quite a hurdle to literally get it done. And I'm assuming that the manufacturing aspect of this is totally new to you. I mean, and a huge challenge.
It was new to me, yes.
Right, and a whole challenge in its own right. No?
Yes.
What I'm getting at is something else, and that is that, as you're already pointing out, there's been interest from others established in the industry. What I'm finally trying to get to rather long-windedly is that the potential that a major, should we say, competitor or related company says, they really have the next generation here. Maybe this should be a part of our portfolio. Well, if that were to happen and you get to an agreement and so on, well, that would be the proverbial, hit, as it were,
right,
which is great to see. I mean, it reminds me of when people talk about equity crowdfunding, and yes, they have expectations about, as I said, 10, 20x or whatever. An example that I like to draw up, even though it is hypothetical, is think of what is it called? The glasses there that were bought by Facebook.
Oculus.
Oculus, sorry, thank you. Yes, the point is this. Oculus did a regular rewards crowdfunding campaign, and they did very nicely with it. And yes. I don't know what the details are, but let's assume you invested $500 to get your Oculus glasses. Good for you. You got your Oculus glasses 6 months later or whenever it took, and that was the beginning and the end. Now, let's just imagine if equity crowdfunding had been around at the time, and you put those $500 or whatever it costs into, in this case, stock, and then Facebook came calling with a $2 billion offer, if I recall correctly. Right. That would have been a perfect example of an outsized return on the investment. Unfortunately, it's only hypothetical, but it's only a matter of time until we do indeed get this kind of campaign. And it looks to me like you are a potential candidate there. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and I definitely would look forward to seeing how that develops one way or the other. What you're doing is fundamentally phenomenal anyway, and I'm certainly going to be standing in line, as it were, to actually get my 30-second toothbrush when that becomes available, which is actually a good question. When is the actually scheduled
launch date?
Launch, yes, right.
So, Ralph, I'm really moved by what you said, because part of your day job is talking to a lot of campaigns. So I appreciate that you see the potential in us. It means a lot coming from you. A couple of things I wanted to mention. Yes, of course, I started this by saying I knew nothing about bringing a consumer product to market. I'm now an old dog. We've been working on this a long time, and I have kind of earned my stripes in a way. And working with that strategic partner, that industry leader, which I wish I could say the name of, I'm on every call. I'm on procurement calls, so I'm on the manufacturing calls. I've toured the facilities, and so while we're not going to launch Ryca is going to take the brush to market ourselves. This industry leader is very interested in an acquisition, which is great. But so that does mean I had to shore up my own manufacturing, and so I was lucky enough to find a world-class manufacturer, partially in Southern California, but their main facility is in Malaysia. So I actually was just in Malaysia recently. And as I was thinking about the round and the raise, and how much we need to raise, I need to kind of price out what manufacturing is going to be. And so we did. And I said, hey, listen, I'm about to raise, and just so our Start Engine people know, of course, we're raising 618 now. But everyone who knows that the swing that we're trying to take, we're going to raise the 618, and then we will likely have to raise more money. I want to be honest, that 618 is not going to get us to market, of course, but we love the crowd, and we plan to do what many companies have done in Start Engine, hopefully fill this round, and then we will have more milestones hit. Our share price will have appreciated. People who get in now will enjoy a bump in their value, and then we'll probably raise more money. But to keep that raise down, I asked our contract manufacturer to consider how much of their quote they would be willing to do for equity. And after spending a week in Malaysia, they said, Ryan, we don't want a penny. We believe in this so much, we want to contribute everything for equity for first generation of Encompass and our kids brush, which we can't wait to introduce, because we know that parents cannot wait to have a 30-second solution for their kids. And so it's equity that Ryca is paying, but for the Start Engine investor, that's an assurance that we're going to get this product to market because our manufacturer is all in. So that's one thing. We are literally about to kick off production tools any second. We have a lot of components on the brush head, the handle, the neck, and some of the components are being kicked off right now. If the stars aligned, we'd be looking at a late 2025 launch. However, I have made the mistake of overpromising timelines before. So I want to make it more clear that a realistic timeline is Q1 of 2026. But if you're an early investor on a consumer product, that's an exciting timeline. An investment today, and we're in the market in just over a year, right? So, and then, we start hitting sales. We have a very smart direct-to-consumer focused go-to-market strategy with a emphasis on dental care, care clinics, dental offices, elderly homes, nursing homes, and so while Start Engine is a regulated environment, so I have to be very careful, I can tell you that our projections are reaching 100 million in sales by our third year in the market, and the average acquisition rate is 4.4. So like you said, like every company wants to be a unicorn. Do we have a chance at a $500 million acquisition 4 years from now? Yes, we do. Can I promise it? Of course not. but that's our ambition.
Well, I think that your manufacturer basically going all equity as opposed to anything else speaks volumes. Now, what is interesting is that, as you point out, the CF campaign will come to a close fairly soon. The beauty of it is, of course, that you can go back to the well, including with the Reg A campaign, which, of course, is a lot higher, right, even though CF by now goes up to 5 million, so that's not insignificant. But that is absolutely great to hear. I love it, and I think that this has great potential, and I wish you all the very best of luck with it. So we'll go ahead and get this published, and hopefully it'll drive traffic to your campaign.
Well, we appreciate it. Like I said, it takes a village. Ralph, thanks for reaching out to us, and it's always fun to talk about common stories. So really, really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much indeed. Have a wonderful day, no?
You got it.
So, if you're ready to clean smarter, not harder, join Ryan Taylor Schwartz and Ryca International in brushing your way to the future of effortless oral care. To know more about the featured campaign, subscribe now to nextpitch.tv.